our series. Welcome to our series on There's Money in Your Member Experience. We started off in this series introducing Herb Lipsman's book on caring and hospitality management, which laid down a great groundwork for the whole series. We went into a breakdown of how we think about member experience management and ROI, and we refer to that as money on the ground, money on the table, money on the balance sheet. Last month, we featured one of our customers, BFit by Bob's and Trey McLean from BFit, with a lot of focus on money on the ground. And then we also moved a little bit into money on the table, money on the balance sheet. It's hard not to do all three, but we had a heavy focus on the money on the ground part. Today, we have our very good friend Keith Elliott from EOS Fitness with us. We'll talk a little bit about money on the ground, and then we're going to move in and we're going to focus mostly on the money on the table portion. I'll introduce Keith and my esteemed colleague Jenny Heimer. Jenny, how long have we worked together?
Almost 30 years.
Almost 30 years. Yeah, you believe that, Keith?
Oh.
Yeah. Almost. Yeah. So I want to give a little bit of background on EOS, give a little bit of color on EOS. Started off as 16 Gold's gyms, mostly in the Southwest.
Right.
It was purchased by private equity group BRS. Name change, kind of change in the operating platform. New leadership brought in under Rich Drenberg as CEO. From there, the idea was to grow the company and grow a great company. Rich focused a tremendous amount on employee experience and member experience. We were brought in. We measured both for EOS. And in 2018, I think, Keith, with 22 locations at that time,
Right.
You were designated. I don't think you even knew that I was interviewing you for that role.
I had no idea. Rich, he just called me and said, go downtown, meet this guy named Blair McCaney, and you're going to meet him at this hotel. I thought, uh-oh, this sounds scary. And I walked in, and it was the best conversation I've ever had in my lifetime. That was 3 hours of just sheer fun, and I had no idea you tricked me.
Yeah, this sounds really sketchy, you know.
Right.
So, Keith was brought in as the member experience director and oversees the program. Jenny, when did you meet Keith? And then also, Jenny, give a little bit about how you, in your role as VP of Customer Success for us, how you work with Keith.
Well, I mean, when I first met Keith, I mean, gosh, we just started talking about, how to, basically about the platform, how to use it, best practice. And Keith was very inquisitive, very, hungry for, how to use that data to improve the team, improve the culture, improve the member experience within the whole EOS company. And then, of course, we've decided that we have so much in common. We are actually siblings in another universe. Somehow we're actually, but I have to say the one thing through all of, through Richard's, Bobby's, Keith's, their leadership. I mean, I have not yet met anyone at EOS that isn't passionate, not only about fitness, but about the member experience.
Yep, I agree. And Keith, go ahead and give us a little bit of your background, and because it's really interesting, your background and how you come into this. Right?
It is. Well, I came to fitness through professional dance. So the company that I danced with in Chicago professionally for 10 years was a contemporary ballet company. So toured the world, awesome way to stay fit, but had to stay even more fit because the up and coming youth could always take your place. So I joined a gym in Chicago and then quickly started working there just so I could have a membership, of course, like most of us do. But that started my career in Chicago and quickly moved through the company and becoming a customer service desk director, managing a staff of 40, and then became membership sales and then became general manager there. So that's my background in Chicago. And then moving forward, I moved 8 years ago and applied when I moved to Phoenix at a Gold's Gym at that time. And actually it was in my welcome workout. The fitness manager said, you want to get a personal training package. I was like, I just moved from Chicago, don't have a job yet. She goes, oh, can you sell memberships? Yeah. So I went in and met the general manager. He said the same thing. Can you sell? I was like, yeah, I can talk to people. And that's how I started my career with this company. Of course, our interview process has changed quite a bit since, but what a wonderful company and what a great way to start with this company.
Awesome. So, the way I'm going to go through the three tiers: money on the ground. Just a quick review. Money on the ground. The way we think about that is when you're responding to a customer, it doesn't require any management or bureaucracy behind you. Money on the ground is simply making sure that your program is set up in a way to ask the right questions, to query the customer in the right way, to give you enough information that if you see an issue, an opportunity, I can close the loop and say, Keith, I can help you with that, right? Or, you know, Keith, I can, you know, here's a service you might need, or that's the money on the ground. It's just, you know, straight out, reach out to the customer. Money on the table takes it back inside the company a little bit, requires some change management, some root cause analysis, and you're addressing bigger issues. Money on the balance sheet is when the company sort of is all in and completely engaged. The entire company is engaged in member experience, and it's top of mind for everybody. And that's when you get a lot of inertia and a lot of organic things happening that dazzle the customer. And I know you have an example of one that we'll get to. Now, I want to spend most of the time today on money on the table. Okay. But a few years back, I was in Las Vegas visiting parents, and I needed a place to work. And I think I texted Rich, and he just got to the corporate office on Sahara. Here's the code to get in. Went in, and lo and behold, I see Keith, right? We just seen each other in San Diego not too long before that.
Yeah.
I see Keith, and he said, oh my God, I'm teaching. And he says, can you come in? And so I sat, awesome, went in, sat, and watched Keith teach a room full of eager people.
42.
Yeah, at the time, we didn't call it money on the ground. At the time, it was just, I'm teaching these people the closed loop feedback process because they are going to go forth into EOS and represent our voice out to our customers.
Right.
Talk about that. Talk about how you trained and how you've scaled this. Another point about EOS, they've doubled in size during the pandemic. So now sitting at about 65 locations. Mm-hmm. So they've been able to really scale this. So I want to talk to us a little bit about that training that you do.
Well, I have to say I was so excited. And when I introduced you, everybody was just in shock that you were there. And I just said, he is the nicest, most gentle human being ever. And he's going to give us insight that you'll never get anywhere else. But the fact, Blair, that you sat there for 5 hours, not that the training was 5 hours, but I had a 3-hour meeting with the 42 staff members. And then I had a 2-hour training because I was now rolling out our Medallia onboarding over to our district operations managers so they could train. You sat in on yet a 2-hour training with her. So I still reflect back to that time. And I just want to thank you again. But really what I want to do is I want to give you a sense of how all that came about. And why responding and closing the loop is so important. It's because when the position of the member experience director was rolled out about 4 years ago, our CEO, Rich, met me at one of our clubs and said, the first thing is getting our teams trained up on how to respond correctly to our members and create a great member experience through responding. Tough to do, you know. So, and of course, you know, that equates to money on the floor, as you were talking about, Blair, and because responding is just low hanging fruit. So we can really service our member and hopefully everyone does it right. But really, it's the art of responding with closing the loop, which really pushes us more to money on the table, I feel. It gets us closer to that. And after sampling, when Rich gave me that directive, and after sampling hundreds of surveys just to assess where we were with responding, it was easy to see that our teams were pretty damn passionate about responding. However, not all of them were hitting the mark and servicing the member with the resolve in the body of the response. It was quite eye-opening. So, as you were talking about the training that was developed, it just became hyper-focused on being proactive and closing the loop prior to sending the response. And plus, to help avoid the big block writing, how people tend to write one big block ongoing paragraph, and then the member's just not going to read it. So the training was also really focused on separating your thoughts into paragraphs. And I know you saw my structure, right? The celebrate, the root comment, close the loop, and then snag a 10. Yeah, it's something that we still teach today, even 4 years later. But really, it's teaching our teams to break up their thoughts into paragraphs. The first paragraph is celebrate the member on any level, especially if they're a promoter or passive. If they're a detractor, then you want to gauge that opening sentence a little bit differently. Just you're more obsessed with making sure that they're taken care of, and I'm going to make sure that happens. But where you celebrate in the first sentence, it's basically a positive sandwiches that we're creating here. But length of stay at the club, whether it's their engagement level, maybe events and things that they do within the club. The next paragraph is you're looking at their root comments. So you're analyzing what they really need, what their feedback is, and if it's something that you can provide a proactive solution to. And then also close the loop goes with that, like, what are you going to do? And the quick example, Tom, he was one of our fitness managers over in Alma School in Arizona. His first survey and his first response, he was proactive enough within it. The member asked for flags up in the ceiling, so because he does backstrokes. And so he had the wherewithal to call the facility manager, district facility manager, order backstroke flags. They got them hung the next week. And his response to that member was just stellar. So he was proactive in his approach. So that's an example that I use so our teams understand how to be proactive, because I really don't want them to send a survey out to a member unless it answers what I did for you based on your survey is.
So, okay, Jenny, I want you to jump in there on that, because you teach closed loop a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, one of the things that you say it a lot, players, every single piece of feedback that comes in is somebody walking into your office and saying, hey, I have something to say. But what I like about Keith's method of teaching it is that it's hard to do, we're all people, or we wouldn't be in this business. Right. So when somebody comes in face to face, it's easy to come up with that answer. What Keith has then done with his team is then now, how do you put that in writing and how do you make it coherent? But what I love and what we teach a lot is to try to, it's not just about that response, it's about that follow-up. And mm-hmm. What do you do? And how do you make this better? And how do you let this person know, I really do hear you, and here's what I've done. And so a lot of the stuff that they've done is taking that feedback, like you said, and making it actionable. But, sometimes you try to do what you can in the feedback, but then what? Then what's that next step? And Keith just rolled out a new plan. Well, not really a new plan, but kind of, reinforce the plan of following back up and reaching back out to that person and making sure you've actually officially closed the loop by saying, by the way, here's what I did, or your guest pass is ready for you, or.
I mean, the interesting thing about the backstroke flags in the pool, mm-hmm. Pure money on the ground. I mean, pure money on the ground, because this member, can you imagine how this member thinks about that? Are you kidding me? Not only, I mean, they were up, but that's really a lot of money on the table, because that ain't the only dude doing backstrokes in there that's thought about that. Right. And if you haven't thought about it, what you've been doing is you've been really looking and trying to figure out where you are. And then the next week you come in, you see those flags. That affects a lot of people's experience. That starts to move into money on the table. So I think I also don't want to gloss over something that you said. You said snag a 10. I want you to explain what that is.
Well, I just wanted our teams to, it's just kind of a snappy little phrase that I played with based on the metrics. And since the highest score is a 10, and do we always get 10s? No, but there's information even in the score. Not that I coach our teams to talk about the score, never, but you can highlight, thank you for highlighting our overall staff friendliness, certainly appreciate it, but grab something that's an 8, 9, or 10 to help you close out your survey. So you would say something like, perhaps, let me just riff, thank you for highlighting our overall staff friendliness. Our operations manager, Joe, is hyper-focused on making sure that our staff is member-facing and member-focused. I'm so glad you're having a good experience. So basically putting into the member's mind what you think they mean by rating us at a higher score, 8, 9, or 10. So I call it snag a 10. So it's just a format, celebrate, root comment, close the loop, and snag a 10 that our teams can follow.
That's awesome. I mean, literally could be anything. somebody gives you a 10 on Kids Club. I'm glad our Kids Club is doing a great job for you. You know, we focus a lot on that, right? I mean,
Right.
it's just finding that. I love that, and kind of closing it. Now, you also said, could sound a little frightening. You said first paragraph, second paragraph, third paragraph. It's really mostly a sentence. Right.
Yeah, it's just an outline format that, you know, it's just through all the years of writing in college, it's you do your outline, you have your intro, your body, your conclusion. But to put it differently and MXM wise in terms of really closing the loop and root cause analysis. So, you know, that's how it was really geared. And I do have to share with you, Blair and Jenny, I have to say that there was really an outstanding, unexpected outcome of training our teams how to respond proactively and close the loop effectively. And I don't know if I ever shared that with you, but it really what it did, like training our staff and giving them the opportunity to practice, to address comments, feedback, and concerns of members. What it did, it really escalated their abilities when they were one-on-one in the club. So I believe the practice of them rehearsing how to be proactive and close the loop, help them in advance and level them up in club as well. I've seen it.
Jenny, don't you, I mean, that's been a big unintended consequence of really getting a lot of people trained on this, is because when you're doing it in email, you can think and it's not in real time, and you can sort of think about it, and you've given them a framework to think on, and it really starts to pull their empathy out when they're face to face. Jenny, go ahead.
Well, and I mean, the one-on-one interaction, but also that up level of just being aware of the experience and being able to look around when they start seeing things through the member's eyes.
Yeah.
You know, that's where that money in the table comes in, because now, you know, you have more people that are not only interacting with customers better, but they're looking at, you know, is there dust bunnies in the corner? Is there, you know, trash everywhere? You know, is somebody looking a little stressed? Can I go help that person? So it does up level them in many other ways.
And that's another benefit of having more people that close the loop. One, it's a lighter load for everybody, but more people get trained that way. More people learn how to be empathetic. I had an idea that I wrote down while we were going through this, and it would be part of the interview process. And you find a couple of great comments that are sort of typical comments. You give the interviewee that comment. You give them a framework of your core values, and you say, just take some time, read the core values. Give me a way to respond to that. That would achieve X, and just let them write it out, and just see what's in them, right? When they kind of put those,
right.
Okay. Might be a great exercise out there for interviewing people. I want to move more now into money on the table. We've talked about root cause.
Okay.
So I think most people know what root cause analysis is, but I'd like you to talk a little bit about EOS's approach to it. Maybe some of the things that you guys have done on root cause.
Sure. Well, really, I'll kind of give you a early setup of it. You know, our company early on set a cadence when training staff how to maneuver MXM, not only on the functionality, but also on how to dig into the real-time information provided. So I at the time, when MXM came about for our company, I was a general manager, and our regional manager at that time in California, who's now our COO, Richard, who you know quite well, would consistently on our weekly calls dig into the platform, and he'd help us understand how to read the information and also help us understand how to solve as well. And at the time, it was all about education, because we were just launching this and starting out with this new platform that was really going to help drive our company in a big way, and boy, has it. So, but also, and I didn't know this, but at the same time, on the executive and above club management weekly calls, that team was analyzing surveys to become more informed on the root comments or root cause analysis. So what they did is they studied our staff's responding efforts. They discussed how the responder did, look for areas of opportunity on how the responder could have done better. But most importantly, they gave consideration to how we could do better as a company, lending itself to change management through root cause analysis.
So that's something right there to me. Root cause on how we were responding, right? Like, so it's saying, hey, like, are we consistent? Are we doing this right? How do we solve for this? Oh, we need a member experience director that can scale teaching this, right? That then moves into the whole framework that you use, and root cause can happen anywhere in there. And sometimes I think we forget about, just those pieces of root cause, just looking at how we're responding. How do we solve so that people are more consistent and more engaging in how they're responding? Jenny said something earlier about, is there dust in the corner? That, so if there's dust bunnies, you could do root cause analysis on dust bunnies, because they, like,
you could do a whole study on it.
Is it because we don't clean often enough? Is it because we haven't trained people how to clean in corners where the walls meet the floor? Is it because we don't have the right filtering system? Is it because, but to then really move upstream and solve, so that you, as we always say, you wipe out an entire species, right? You wipe out the entire species of complaint or issue.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's true. And something that is so common, like dust bunnies, but there's one, if I can share a story with you guys.
Absolutely.
There's one that came up because it equates to root cause analysis, and then in this case, change management at the club level. But it's an example that we use, the MXM daily recaps that come in at 3:04 in the morning every morning. Every time I wake up, I go through them. I'm so trained. But our company, all of us are charged with reading to get a quick snapshot. And I know that the daily updates are truncated, so you're only getting a sampling, but really through that sampling, you get a sense of what's going on in the whole picture. And I'll just share, and this is the story. So Marcel Kersey, our VP of development, he knows that I like to dig in on surveys, and if I can address something, he'll say, work your magic. He'll send it to me and say, go. There was one that came in, and the survey, the members suggested that perhaps we weren't ADA compliant at one of our clubs. And actually we were. We painstakingly made sure that we had the appropriate equipment on both levels, because it's a two-story. So I did reach out to him, and he mentioned that you don't have a recumbent bike downstairs. And I said, absolutely, we'll make that happen for you. So I called our facility director. He came over, met me one evening, and we were measuring out where to put it. So we found a spot in our small club, boutique club, and where we could put it. So I called the member and I said, the bike is there. And he goes, great, I'm going to send my wife over. This is going to make her so happy because she has Alzheimer's, and going to EOS is the only thing that makes her smile and makes her light up. Whew. That was a story, but it continues. So after we got the bike down there, his wife went in. I called him the next day after she went in. I saw she checked in, and he was upset. I was like, but we brought the recumbent bike down for you. He goes, it doesn't have a TV. So I called the facility director. He met me that same night, and we were measuring. We'd need 100 feet of cable to plug into the piece of equipment. We'd have to switch out one with a TV, but the signal wouldn't operate all the way downstairs. And there was a gentleman that was at the club that night. He goes, are you measuring that out for this particular member, referring to the one with Alzheimer's? And I said, yes. I go, do you know her? He goes, well, I know the family very well. They're part of our church group, and there's a very large number of us that all go to EOS here. And I was like, whoo. And I said, oh my gosh, we're having a problem that we can't get the TV to run downstairs. He goes, let me call him. He called him and asked him, he goes, what other options do we have? He goes, well, she only likes Netflix. So I said, ask him if I can order a tablet. We'll put Netflix on it and have her name on the tablet at the desk, and she get it every time she comes in. So we did that, and he was so pleased. And I have to say, I put it on my calendar a month later to follow up with him. And he said, I want to thank you for making the last days of my wife's life the best. Unfortunately, she passed away. The most touching story ever. And to this day, he's still a member.
And so
you get teary-eyed, Keith.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And so the cynical eye would say, it's just one member. Why go through that much effort? But it's recognition. It did a few things. It wasn't just one member. And I want to go all the way back to Herb. The name of Herb Lipsman's book on management is Caring. It starts there. And when you go over the top like that, like that right there, that creates legend within an organization, and it tells people what matters to an organization. It's the woman that returned a tire to Nordstrom's in Alaska story, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah.
Why? Well, because it sends a strong signal about who we are as a company and our values. And that story then becomes legend about how we treat customers, how we respond to customers, let alone that he was well connected in some large church and they were all members there.
Mm-hmm.
Let alone how that must have gone through that community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So there's, that is such a great example of empowerment and initiative at the front line. Empowerment, resourcefulness, and being taking initiative at the front line. By the way, that's what all employees want. That's a sense of play. That's what the employee feels like they get to play, is when they get to do stuff like that.
Big Tomo. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Then there's the root cause that you pull up into the organization. I'll share a story about one of your offsites when we've been going through some feedback. It was something like a woman had been having great experience, but she said, every time we come in, these light dumbbells have been moved over to this part of the gym. When somebody picks up, we need them over in this part of the gym. At the time, we were just getting going. Rich Drenberg had said, let's just, and I think at the time he said, let's just pick up the money that's on the ground here and just fix stuff quick, especially if it's low budget stuff. Let's just fix it. Buy yoga mats when they need yoga mats, buy light dumbbells when they need light dumbbells. And so we said, well, why don't we just buy some dumbbells there? Well, let's do that. And then I asked the question, what's the process for that? And the GM said, well, I sent an email. I said, to who? I said, to this person, and this person, who are all. I said, what do you guys do with it? I said, well, I don't know. We take it. What do you do with it? Well, here's what I do with it. And there wasn't a process for doing this, right? So in a practical sense, it was to empower the GMs to really just take, quick fixes within that location. Yep. In many ways, there wasn't actually the infrastructure to do it. And I think that got solved in that meeting, but I believe that has evolved quite a bit now.
It's funny you bring this story up. It has, and I know that Rich, helped a lot, small budget for, the clubs where they could order equipment, about $400, but that process has evolved. And that's funny you bring up that story, Blair. It's evolved into a small apparatus audit that happens monthly, through, and even strengthened by surveys through MXM that speak to, like maybe the pull down ropes for triceps are frayed, or we need more clips. And so we're like, okay, let's advance this process of them being able to order, but we need to do more of an audit monthly so we can make sure that we're not missing any pieces whatsoever. So our fitness managers are charged, and district fitness managers too, are charged with going in and filling out a smart sheet. And it gives them just a checklist of what to check. And then there can be decisions made on ordering at the budget level that you spoke about, or if we need to get approval on a larger one, just to make sure that our clubs are equipped with everything needed.
Love it. I mean, that's like moving upstream so that the member doesn't have to comment about the dumbbell. I mean, it's like, let's
right, it's removing it. Yeah.
Yep. The member says your yoga mats are worn out. Well, let's buy new yoga mats. That's really great. But then the root cause on that is, why are the yoga mats worn out? That's the root cause. Yep. I'm sorry. Analyzing the root cause is asking, why are the yoga mats worn out? Because we've had them too long. Why have we had them too long? Because they're not in a cycle to buy. Why aren't they in a cycle to buy? Because we don't have a process. Why don't we have a process? Because we never came up with one. Let's come up with one. That is exactly how root cause should work. And now maybe nobody ever complains about worn out. Awesome that they complain about the worn out yoga mats and you're able to buy them like that. But this is really a great example of root cause and putting a process in place, saving everybody a lot of time and headache.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, and that was, that's examples of like individuals in the club, and like even with the ADA, it's more, club level, even, from the executive level coming down. I mean, there's some great stories of change management that has happened just through root cause analysis. as well. We're a company that's really bent on making sure that we analyze the information and that we move forward and create action plans. There was one, if I can share another story, you guys know me.
Yeah, I love it.
But all clubs, all gyms, fight hard to grow and learn and make change. And we're no different. There was when I became part of the Above Club team and a director, 3-member experienced director, I was invited onto the Above Club calls weekly, and I used to analyze the surveys and send them to Richard, our COO, and would look for interesting ones that we as an Above Club would still continue that same cadence of looking at surveys. And I found the most interesting one, and it was from our downtown club. And Blair, you and I had many conversations about our downtown Phoenix club, and we went into bright spots and saw that they were doing great from 6 months prior, and we celebrated the heck out of them. But there was one struggle point. And the survey that we got 6 months prior was, you're not getting my laundry right back into my bag when you put it back in my locker. At that club, we used to have executive laundry service. And they paid a price for that. So they would drop it in the bin at the front desk. Our staff would wash it and then put it back into the locker. And then 3 months later, we received another survey from the same member. You're not getting my clothes correctly back into my locker. And then here it is, the last survey. And this is the one that I sent to Richard and said, look at all 3 of them. They all related to not getting the laundry service correct. Our team sometimes would speed up the process, put a couple bags in the laundry or in the washer, and Mr. Jones, shorts would end up with, Sally's, top, and the bags would get messed up. And as hard as we tried, and I used to manage that club too, and I really fought to make sure that it was correct, but it was just something we couldn't get right. And that's when Rich, our CEO, stated, you guys, let's make a decision moving forward. Should we continue this particular amenity? We're good. We really are, but we're just not getting it right even after 6 months. So we decided that wasn't going to be part of our amenities any longer. So, we really were able to do root cause analysis and then change management there, and on such a high level.
And I think that's something that everybody should look at on all their amenities, is if you can't do it, if you can't be excellent at it, either get excellent or don't do it. Mm-hmm. Right? If you just can't do it with excellence. Jenny, so you've been working close with Keith for years now.
She's my sister.
I know. What are the traits for this role? Like, ideally, what do you see as the traits for this role? Because it's okay with 65 clubs at EOS. It's not a team. Keith is the one that scales this. What are the traits?
Hungry for knowledge, hungry for passion for always being able to improve. But also what I see in Keith a lot is empowering the people, empowering the staff to make those decisions and be there for the members. And I know all of EOS staff that I've ever met want that to be a family center when they come in, and how can we help you accomplish your goals, and in a great environment and a family friendly type of experience. But the next level of that, and what Keith is so good at, is helping drive that. If you're having to fix the same things over and over, there's a problem. So with everything that you guys have been talking about, so let's find a way to investigate something new. Well, let's eliminate this one. The member's going to find something else, right? But you will get to that point where all those fires, and I tell this a lot in our trainings, our goal is to, when I was GM, it's like you have all these fires to put out every time you walk in the door. And it's like, really looking at the feedback and making change and putting processes into place, your loyalty goes up, your NPS goes up, but those fires start to go away, and you get to spend more time saying thank you to your front desk, thank you to your staff.
Mm-hmm.
That's such a great point. That is such a great point, that as soon, things go out of the urgent category. I've always said, look, once your NPS is 75, 80, you're still going to get complaints. It's going to sound like this. I don't like that shape of brown that you painted that wall, right? I mean, look, that's where you want to get, right? I mean, people feel safe, they feel at home, they know they can completely trust you, and now they can express the tiniest nuance of things that might annoy them. That you should embrace that. And that, in fact, Abraham Maslow on management, he talks about this, where the customer, if the crappiest experience in a club is when the customer says, I can't trust you with my money, you're unfriendly, and you stink, right? I mean, you get all that stuff fixed, and then it's okay. Well, I'm starting to feel like I belong, and you can take it right up Maslow's pyramid here, and how he thought about business and the customer's mind, to where the customers eventually sort of takes ownership of it. This is my club. This is where I come. And if I don't like the shade of that wall, I get to tell you that. Awesome experience, but I wish you would have, that's kind of the flow. And it's an ever moving, constant process to do this. But man, that's how you differentiate.
Yeah, it's a big part of what we do is we work with our teams to, believe that when a member is coming to you with suggestions and feedback or even concerns, that it's their perception, it's 100%, and really, but it's their belief, you need to believe that they really are looking out for the success of our company because they really care for our company. And through all the reports that I've read, those who respond to surveys and are most passionate, maybe if they're detractors, it's okay because they're return consumers to products because they are the most passionate.
Assume good intent.
Right.
Assume good intent when people are giving you feedback. And I want to, if you guys have questions, go ahead and submit them. Bear's going to be managing the questions. We're going to go about another 10 minutes, and then we're going to go into some Q&A. Okay, a lot about money on the table. I do want to start to touch a bit on money on the balance sheet. And that is getting, when the entire organization is engaged and aligned around the member experience. And you guys have done some things. I've written down some notes here. Friday executive calls, F15 meetings, the OSF challenge, cross 4 things that I wrote down that you've kind of done to help get people engaged. Can you talk about those a bit with us, Keith?
Sure. The first one you talked about, the Friday executive calls. I have to say, Blair and Jenny, our team here at EOS, really, it's driven by Rich, and our whole executive team is just, we're obsessed with MXM and reading the information and how it can help propel us forward, because yes, we want to be the best in the industry. So we're finding all those opportunities, a lot of it through MXM. So even on the Friday calls, there's a very large portion, of course, dedicated to sales and production, but also to MXM and how we're trending, how we're tracking, and the information that's being provided. So that's a constant weekly, always at 9 o'clock, and all of us jump onto that phone call at 9, pretty excited. But we also still coach on those calls to make sure that our teams are going into the clubs, being informed through MXM, making sure that they have the information when they visit a club for that day. So it's a constant reminder as well to make sure that our teams are utilizing it. So the Friday calls are an excellent opportunity.
And it says, here's the top of the org chart on this call. Here's what our eyes are on, and here's what we care about. Sends a strong signal. That just sends a really strong signal. It's not just the sales and production, it is the member experience. It's a recognition that there is a back door. And a lot of people go out the back door, will also come back in the front door again.
Right.
That's the important part of that, is that they'll come back in the front door again if we get this right. And so doing it at that level, so engagement is when everybody cares about it. And the top of the food chain has to say, this is the hill we're going to die on. Every company that's ever really gotten member experience right, the CEO has put a stake in the ground and said, this isn't just a tactic that we're going to have a member experience director, and I'm going to look at Keith and I'm going to say, go fix our member experience, Keith. That's not how it works. It's the people with formal authority. That's exactly right. Formal authority to make decisions have to have the courage to make decisions to change the organization based on your vision
Courage to make change. Yes, courage to make change. Absolutely. And there's a whole team above me that's helps drive it as well. You know, my direct report, Bobby Quick, is just passionate about this platform as well, and how it drives the company. Believe me, we were texting early this morning at 6.
Well, one of the things about Bobby and her background and you is, and Jenny used this early on when describing you, this intense curiosity, right? So I love the idea of intense curiosity, but Bobby is also a teacher. You're a teacher. Both of you. I think that is one of the most important parts of your role. I think Bobby is an incredible teacher. You're an incredible teacher. And I think that drives this so much, is how you and Bobby really like to educate and teach. And even I think you both are equally excited about kind of creating the curriculum, you know?
Well, yeah. And a lot of that folds into what you were talking about before, the F15 meetings. Yeah. You know, which is something that was created, two and a half years ago, where it's the first 15 minutes where we really dedicate it, you know, to a core value or some sort of core training. But then the next opportunity after that is where we really dig in that particular all staff meeting. So F15 is an all staff meeting once at the top of the month, every month. And but after the first 15 minutes of whatever the core value training is, like this particular one coming up is a conflict resolution. And I added a B to the word last. And so I used the formula or acronym BLAST rather. So be the ultimate host by having a blast. So what I talked about before, believing that the member really wants us to succeed. But the next section after the first 15 minutes is really diving into your medallia scores, into what comments are made, and also core value shout outs, anything that you might find in the surveys that you can share with your team. And that's where last week, Jenny, I sent you my medallia, or the Medallia Monday. I do Medallia Mondays every other week. And the last one was about the star, how you can color code it to come back to the survey. So if you want to share it in your meeting, you can always just color code the survey and then pull it up with an easy filter.
And I'll give a little context on the F15. It was trying to figure out, as EOS was scaling and has these locations and X number of employees in every location, how do you keep getting the message further and further down and out to the periphery of the organization? Is there a mechanism for that? Well, what if there was a meeting once a month in the location, it was all staff, and what if the first part of that meeting, the first 15 minutes of that meeting was always around a core value, hence the F15 becomes the first 15 minutes. And then there had to be some root cause on that. Are there screens? Are there places to meet? How do we design the next club so that we actually have a place to meet and a screen, and we can carve out time, space, and energy to put people in a room to actually continue to get this message out to everybody.
Right. And that's exactly what we did. We found opportunity where we could have screens available and the meeting space available. And that's when our F15s take place.
That's awesome. And then talk about the OSF challenge a little bit.
That was fun. Talk about Tomo and exciting your team. And Blair, you know, I mean, you've witnessed at our retreats the kind of fun that we like to have, we're very serious, but we love to have fun. Yeah. And I just remember working with Jill, who was facilitating one of our retreats, and she's like, Keith, I want you to do all the Energizer moments. And I'll get to the OSF in just a second, Blair, but just an example of how we like to have fun. And I remember lining up all of our top execs, and there's 100 of us above club, lined them up in 4 rows, 25 each, and I gave one end a hula hoop. They all had to hold hands, and then they had to move the hula hoop all the way down the line. And seeing Rich, our CEO, playing along, it was so much fun. Just that is like the epitome of what EOS Fitness is all about, seeing Rich do that. So whoever got to the very end got to get into the lunch line first. So it was just an energizer moment. Jill and I did a lot of those at that particular retreat. Okay, moving towards OSF. Fun is so embedded in the fabric of EOS. I cannot begin to tell you.
OSF.
What? OSF is overall staff friendliness. Don't tell, it's a secret. But overall staff, we designed a challenge, Bobby, Bobby and I worked on this, and it was based on OSF, or overall staff friendliness. So it was just based on a large sports themed reality show. And what we did is just took a snapshot of the ending quarter overall staff friendliness score. And then we had a competition throughout the next quarter, and they had to go greater than 0.2. And then we tracked it daily. And this is how I learned how to do Excel spreadsheet. Bobby said, do an Excel, you have to extract the information out of MXM, pop it in an Excel spreadsheet, and then to calculate it and then color code it blue if they were greater than 0.2. Okay, so we were looking to see if they were, consistently day to day at greater than 0.2, or if they didn't quite make it, if they hit at least 30 days within the quarter of greater than 0.2. And then the other challenge with this is if they hit a 9.2 consistently at the throughout, and then stayed at it at the end of the quarter, it was just a competition. They got prizes, but it's not about that. It was really about them working together as a team then to develop action plans on overall staff friendliness, digging into MXM, into the surveys and the text analytics, into deeper insights, also into other areas so they could pull information, and then they developed their action plan. So it was really cool to see those come about. And the measurability, of course, was MXM and the metrics. So, yeah. But they were also able to go in every Friday when I uploaded the information and see who was doing what and who had the most blue. We were looking for a sea of blue, of course, of greater than 0.2. Yeah. But we had a lot of damn blue in there. That's all I got to say. It was awesome. Well, it really drove our teams in a fun way.
And I just think you mentioned this a little bit ago. You said TOMO. Okay, that stands for, those of you listening, it stands for total motivation. It comes from the book Prime to Perform. Mm-hmm. And it's when a company really knows how to use the direct motivators that keep people really engaged in an organization. Lindsay McGregor is the author, Lindsay McGregor, and I'm trying to remember, but I really recommend anybody read Prime to Perform. It's an outstanding book. EOS has used that as part of their sort of Bible around how to engage employees. They also have created these full entire day onboarding around their culture that they do in every one of their markets every single month for all new employees. And Bear, I think we probably have some questions out there, but we started off talking about money on the ground. That should be obvious to people, how you pick up money off the ground. Money on the table becomes more inside the organization, doing root cause and fixing, keep looking upstream and fixing things and kind of wiping out entire areas of issues or taking advantage of opportunities. Money on the balance sheet is that entire engaged organization. And in a conversation with Rich, you guys have had a lot of success, and Rich had heard Jenny speak at, I think, FISA, talking about money on the ground, money on the table, money on the balance sheet. And Rich called me and said, there's a much bigger story in our data somewhere. There's a much bigger story here, because the impact on our company is much bigger than just thinking about money on the ground and money on the table. And we need to flesh that out in the data. But just in how you think about it, what are the ways that you think putting the customer at the center of your organization has sort of improved the value of the entire enterprise?
Just quickly off the top of my head, in our industry, sales and production is a really big component, and it really keeps the gym afloat. But MXM has really helped us to understand the customer, and it has helped our team members, our staff, with attrition by connecting with the members. So our teams are really able to manage attrition better by servicing their needs and helping, create loyal, lifelong fans, which is part of our core purpose. But we've really created through this a lot of advocates for our company. Yeah. And MXM, it's really helped give our team members some mad skills.
Yeah.
Well, and simply because that's part of our mission, is really to enhance your skills should you stay with us or carry them wherever you go.
That's outstanding.
Yeah.
Really quick, I know we have questions, Blair, but one of the things when I've talked to the EOS team, different team members over the years, I'm surprised, I guess, maybe not surprised, but I'm always in awe of the number of staff that were members first. They loved it so much that
Yeah.
they want to work there. And that to me that's a tribe, that's an energy. I mean, that's something that people want to be a part of. And
Yeah.
that's all the stuff that these guys are doing that makes people go, I want to be a part of that. See,
Yep.
that's you.
Yep. That's excellent. Bear came on and then he heard me ask you a question, then he disappeared again. So let's go ahead. Let's go ahead. What questions do we have so far, Bear?
Here we go, Blair. A couple of questions have come in that I've thrown up on the screen here, so we should be able to take a look. First question comes from Curtis in Iowa City. He said that he's been having a lot of hard time with change, specifically getting his staff to adopt changes long-term. Provides an example of how they were intaking in-person member feedback, hoping to get some suggestions, some advice from the three of you on how, what is the better way, start to finish, to implement sustainable change.
Jenny or Keith, do you want to? I mean, I'll abstain until you guys want to comment. But
Keep
What's that? No, go ahead, Blair.
okay, so there's multiple things in this to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
I do think having a process for taking in. First of all, you have to operationalize how you take in feedback. You have to operationalize it. Meaning it has to become part of the daily habits of the organization of how you deliver your product every single day. That's operationalizing it. It's like production, sort of. And so if you're going to operationalize taking in live feedback from members, then you have to have a very concise intake form, a place to put it, and a place to report it, and set an expectation for your front lines to get at least 4 member comments a day, or at least 3 member comments a day. And then you have to look at it and manage to that if you're going to intake it. These processes usually break, and you go back to your old broken ways because there's not been an inspection system around them. Almost always. Go ahead, Jenny.
I think also for long-term buy-in, I think it goes back to, what is your company's mission, vision, value? Who are you? What are you about?
Why?
Mm-hmm.
What is the why? Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. That's such a great point on anything. Not just telling your employees to do it a certain way, but here's what we're trying to accomplish. Here's why we're trying to do it. Here's why this is important. Here's the system. Here's how we inspect it. And then it needs to become part of your regular operating meetings. If that's important, it should be part of your weekly operations meeting. I will say this on the in-person feedback, that should be just a piece. You won't get enough feedback. And whether you use us or somebody else, you need to operationalize the intake of member experience so it's coming in continuously every single day. Long-term buy-in for change says, I think that goes back to what Jenny was saying. Think about, Curtis, it's 5 years from now, you're speaking at URSA, and you're going to tell your success story at URSA 5 years from now. They've decided they want you to speak because you're such a success. What does that look like? What are you going to be telling people? In other words, what do you want to be someday? At that point, describe your company. We have the best customer experience in the industry. We are the most profitable in our region. Tell the story. Work backwards from there. That's how you get buy-in. You have to be a good storyteller, and you have to absolutely believe it yourself. The biggest thing I'll talk about is operationalizing stuff. It has to become part of the daily habits of the organization. That's why technology is so important when it comes to a lot of things, from checking in your members to having a great CRM system for sales, and then a member experience management system for voice of customer. Those things work hand in glove. I could do a seminar on this. That's an awesome question. Eric?
Thanks for that. Next question is from Ashley in Chicago.
Chicago.
Staff balance between making a member feel important and saying yes versus actually, giving an answer that is in the best interest of the situation for the whole instead of just that individual member.
Right. Okay, Jenny and Keith, you guys take that one on, then I'll I'll be the color commentator.
I'll go first.
Okay.
While you ponder. And so the reason I raised my hand on that one, Blair, is because again, back in the GM days, we probably got a request for a pool, at least probably once a week, right? I mean, need a pool, you need to put in a pool. And it's like, you know what, I'm never gonna have a pool. unless Blair decides to put in a pool, then I'm out. But no, I mean, I won't put in a pool. But what I can do is give you a great workout to be a good swimmer.
Mhm.
Or even, we have a partnership with the local Y, go swim there at the high school. So there's other ways to say, I understand the request, we're not able to do that, but what I can do is, so kind of like what Keith refers to as the snag a 10, kind of in that same vein, I probably won't be able to do that, but what I can do is. Keith?
Right. And even early on in a lot of my training with staff, when I was managing clubs, my training to my team was take out the negative connotations and you move to what you can do, even if it's something that you can't change. Of course, you're going to have to educate a little bit the member, but here's what I can do. And your example, Jenny, was, spot on, providing some sort of training that, but taking out can't, won't, no, especially, but just inserting what you can do is. And every member, no matter what they're asking, their point is important. So always go to, yes, I can. And that's part of a lot of the training here at EOS Fitness, getting to the yes, I can. And how do you do that?
And Ashley, I think a great method for this would be what I would call case study teaching. Take just a few examples, even if you make them up yourself, Ashley, take this example. This is Bob. Bob is 55 years old. He's been a member for 10 years. He spends $5,000 a year, or he spends $500 a year, whatever. Frame it up. Bob comes with this request, and then let your people say, and then ask them the question. Let them think of this. Now, how do we create a balance here between making Bob happy and also doing what's right for the business? What can we do here? Do these case studies in teams. Don't come in with the answer. Then facilitate the discussion. I promise you, Ashley, I promise you, that is one of the most powerful ways to engage your teams in member experience and how to think about the member. It's fun for them. I encourage everybody out there.
Blair, that's an excellent point. And Ashley, our Nevada team, our district manager over there who teaches our onboarding for MXM and Medallia, we restructured their training over there because the team's becoming really good, and she does exactly that, where she'll extract a few samples and then have the team come up separately with different ideas and then discuss getting to the yes, I can. So that's a very good example there.
And I think one of the points that I think we would all three make to you, Ashley, is you can't script it. You can't just say, there's this, if they ask for this, do that. They have
so many variables.
Yep, have to have some freedom. And I know we use, and I know EOS uses what we call freedoms and obligations. We have 9 of them. You're free to do this. You're obligated to do this. You guys have 10. We explain the guide rails, we teach the values, and then people can generally figure out how to make these decisions. I'd really encourage you to try to do this this case study training. It'll be a lot of fun for you. It'll take your employees to a very different level in how they think about this, and they'll come up with some cool answers that they'll be able to take to their front lines, and it just gives them better ways to think. We have another one, Bear?
We do, yeah.
I like the way you're doing this, Bear. This is nice.
That's great.
Yeah.
I do want to note that we are about out of time. So
okay, let's see. Let's do. I have 2 more questions. Let's get through this one, and then we'll do. We'll jump to the end here. But the last one is from Sean in Hoboken, and I like this one the best. I think. Wish an example would have been good, but if a process is broken but it works, it's profitable. How do you improve it without actually without ruining the profitability? What's functional about it?
So I'm going to take a stab at this, right? So let's say, and for a lot of our customers, we measure the purchase experience, the customer purchasing the membership. So right after they buy the membership, what was the experience like? So one thing I would say is, if it's broken but in other words, let's just say in this example that the purchase experience isn't very good, but your team is really productive, but the people going through the process are feeling sort of handled and icky in the process, then I would say that it's not as profitable as it could be. I think if a process is, so what I'm making some assumptions, Sean, I apologize. One of the assumptions I'm making is that by broken, it's not necessarily a very good experience, but it's making us money. Then I would not make the assumption that it being a bad experience is part of the reason it's profitable. I would say it could be more profitable if you redesigned it with some very specific design parameters. In other words, I'm going to take that sales process. How do we sell even more, yet make the experience not just okay, but great? And then take those design parameters. Some great books on creative thinking out there and design, by the way, on how to do process design. And this is what big Fortune 500 companies do. And I'll tell you this, there are principles that come from Fortune 500 companies' success that apply down to the single studio location. We need to learn some of those principles. One of them is process design and doing it in a way that wins all the way through. I hope that answered the question. Would have been cool to get an example there, but that was, do you guys have anything you'd add to that?
That's perfect. Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
eventually it won't be, right? If it's broken, eventually it won't be, either by staff or by members. Somebody's going to tell you it's not working.
Yeah. Yep. Hope that helps, Sean. Do you have time for one more? Do we have any more?
We do have one more.
Let's do it.
Our good friend John from Sacramento is back. Questions around prioritization. If I'm remembering correctly, I lost a couple of his managers a few months back, and before that, they had put a bunch of new growth initiatives into place. And then when turnover happened, a lot of balls were just left in the air. John was left juggling them, trying to figure out how what's the best way for prioritization.
Find the right replacements a few months before they left. Okay. Well, if they were okay, I'm talking too much, but I can't stop. I have no practical way to stop myself. No.
Keep the flow going, Blair. Go.
Here's what I would say. If these were initiatives that you handed off to managers and those managers are gone, those aren't your top initiatives. What are the ones that you're taking on? And now maybe your top initiative should be to hire, to get the right talent. Forget about trying to force feed your organization something if you don't have the right talent in place to do it, you don't have the right people in place to do it, and the right technology in place to do it. I would drop back, think about what is the core part of our business, focus just on the core part of the business, kind of, I would say retreat, regroup, look at the landscape again and decide if those initiatives are important, because those were actually handed off to managers.
Hope that helped, John.
Wait, before we leave. So
Oh.
I just have to show my shirt.
Awesome.
We need music in the background for that. Okay. And I have to show you guys my treat for after the webinar. I've been looking at this all morning. This is my plant-based vegan donut that I get to eat.
Don't try to make yourself feel better by saying it's a plant-based vegan donut, Keith. It's a freaking
Yeah, it's sugar loaded with wheat. No.
You guys are awesome. Keith, Jamie,
Yeah.
there. Thank you very much. Our next one, we're going to be focusing a lot more on money on the balance sheet. Our next series in this series will be April 7th, Thursday, April 7th at 1 o'clock Eastern. Keith, you're a gem.
Thank you, guys.
Very much.
My pleasure.
All
All right, buddy.
All right. Thanks, everybody.